Good morning. We are grateful that you are here today. My name is Sheila Wybrow. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees at Tahoma UU Congregation. As we begin our gathering, I respectfully acknowledge that I speak to you from occupied Puyallup ancestral land. I pay respect to the elders past and present and extend that respect to their descendants and all Indigenous people. If you are joining us with a longing for community, the hope for peace, and if you are seeking justice, you are most welcome. We are a diverse congregation and encourage each one who comes through our doors to find their own truth and belief. We invite all to join us in a search for meaning and community, guided by reason, respect for each other, and by love. In this virtual platform, we welcome people from outside our traditional geographic area. So a special welcome to old friends returning and from new friends from far away. I invite you to join us on Facebook and Twitter. Links to the video version of the service will be posted there this week, as well as on our website. You can find all of our program announcements this week in our e-news and listed on our church calendar. And here are some of the highlights. Following worship service today at 11:30, children are invited to Kids Chapel with Nancy Slocum, our Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth. Beginning this Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. and continuing on Wednesday evenings in March, join Reverend Linda for conversations about widening the circle of concern, the report from the UUA Commission on Institutional Change. Some of the findings and recommendations of the report will be part of the discussion, as well as considering how to adopt some of them for ongoing work toward creating a more inclusive congregation. Reading the full report is recommended before joining, though all are welcome to come along to join in reflection. See the e-news or the church calendar events for more details and for a list of the readings that will be covered each week. We have a group of volunteers moving forward to implement our safe parking pilot project that was approved a couple of weeks ago. If you would like to volunteer with the project, check out the announcement in the e-news for details. Information also includes training opportunities that you may take advantage of now, even if you haven't decided how you might volunteer yet. Links for all of our programs can be found in the weekly e-news or via the events on our church calendar. Thank you for your ongoing financial support to our congregation that makes all of this possible. These programs, our staff who create and facilitate the programs, and the connections we make through our congregation. Now let us prepare to gather in worship.
Good morning, everyone. Our opening words today are by Cynthia Landrum. We gather together in different ways this morning, from computer screens, from telephones. We gather reaching out across the wires, waving from a safe distance. We come here together in religious community, from living room to front porch to car seat even. We gather as we are able, ready to be of service to each other and to the world, ready to build the community of love and hope. As we face this bright morning, we are apart, but we are still together, offering our love, our commitment, our hope, and our prayers in service to one another and to the world in a new way, but also an old way, that we come together in worship today. It is so good to be together.
As Nancy Slocum lights the chalice in our sanctuary, please feel free to light your chalice wherever you might be. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and the holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come.
My name's Nancy Slocum. I am the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth here at Tahoma Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And we were talking about daffodils earlier. The daffodils in front of the congregation, in front of the church building, are blooming today, and it is so fun to see them in bloom. I've been watching them every week as I come, waiting for them to burst forth. So here we are. Our story today, during our Time for All Ages, is one that perhaps you've heard before, but like all good stories, they always bear hearing again. And this is the story of stone soup. It's a story that comes out of somewhere in Europe, I believe, and there are many versions of it. So this is one version of that. There were two travelers who were on a long journey, a long journey. They'd been walking for days, and they had run out of food to eat. They sometimes were able to come across a place where they could find some berries in the bushes and such, and could get a little bit to eat, but they were getting pretty hungry. And they got to a point where they came up a hill and looked down, and they saw a little village down below, and they thought, oh, great, there are people there. We'll be able to go and get some food. So they went down into the village, and they stopped at the very first house that they came to, and they knocked on the door, and an older woman came to the door, and they said, greetings, we are traveling through your town, and we have no food to eat. I wonder if you would share some food with us. And the woman who answered the door said, I'm sorry, I have no food to share. You'll have to be on your way. And so on their way, they went to the next house, thinking for sure this next house will share some food with us. We are so hungry. And they knocked on the door, and a child came to the door and answered the door, and they asked this child and said, we're very hungry. Might you have some food you can share with us? No, we have no food here to share. Well, these poor travelers went to every house in the village, and the answer was always the same. They knocked on the door, they told them about how they needed food, and the answer was no, we have no food to share. Well, rather than being discouraged by this, the travelers said, okay, we need to come up with a plan here. We got to figure this out because we need to get some food. And one of them all of a sudden, I've got an idea. And he called out very loudly, soup! We are going to make a pot of soup, and we will share it with the whole village. But we need one thing, we need a pot. Does anyone have a pot we can use? And all of a sudden, a man came out of his house and had a great big cast iron kettle. And they were so thankful. They said, thank you for sharing your kettle with us. And they built a fire, and they put some water in the pot, and they said, this is a very special soup. This is stone soup. And they picked up a rock from the ground, and they put it in the pot of water. And people started coming out of their houses to see what was going on, and they're looking and see this pot, a great big pot of water with this stone in it, and the water is bubbling away. And they said, well, this is going to be such a good soup. We've put our magic ingredient into it, but in truth be known, it really would be better if it just had a little bit of carrot in it. And all of a sudden, someone in the gathering crowd said, well, I have a carrot. And she ran off to her house, and next thing you knew, she came back with a carrot. And she put it in the pot, and they all watched the soup simmering away. Oh, this is going to be a good soup, said one of the travelers. This is going to be really good. It's got the stone and a carrot and our magic ingredient. But truth be told, it really would be better if there was a little bit of potato in it. Oh, I've got a potato, said one of the people in the crowd. And off that person ran to their house and came back, not just with one potato, but with two potatoes. And into the soup they went. Well, this continued on. And next thing you knew, people started coming up with stuff that they could put in the soup. They ran back to their houses, and they came back, and someone brought some onions, and someone brought some herbs, and someone brought some parsnips, and someone brought some zucchini and sweet potatoes and peas. And before you knew it, the whole pot of soup was filled with vegetables and the stone, of course. as the soup was brewing and simmering, people started saying, oh, this smells so good. This is going to be wonderful. We need a place to sit to eat our soup. And the next thing you knew, people were going back to their homes and bringing out tables and chairs and bowls, tablecloths and spoons. And before you knew it, a whole lovely dining room had been set up outside with this pot of soup. When the soup was finally done, one of the travelers went in with a long-handled spoon and dug out the stone and tossed it aside. And then they ladled out this lovely soup into everybody's bowls. And everybody sat and ate their soup and remarked on how wonderful it was. It truly was a magical soup. It was the best soup that ever had. And there was laughter as people shared stories with one another and told jokes and got to know each other. For you see, some of these people had never even met any of their neighbors. They were so closed up in their own houses. They had a wonderful time, and everybody's bellies were filled, including the travelers' bellies, and they were ready to move on. And as they got ready to go, someone said, but wait a minute, thank you for making us this wonderful soup, but we'd love to be able to do this again. We'd love to be able to come together and make this soup again, but there's one thing we don't know. What is the magic ingredient that you put in the soup? And the traveler just said, you are the magic ingredient, all of you. And with that, they went on down the road. And from that time onward, every Saturday, the village came together and they made their own pot of stone soup. That's our time for all ages today. I will share with you the words we use when we sing children out of the sanctuary to their classmates. We'd like to remind you that we hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your hearts be at peace as you go, to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go. Take care.
Good morning. That was a wonderful story. Thank you, Nancy. And it goes to show how one thing can create so much more, which is what the pledge drive is about. My name is Alana Franklin, and I am honored to be the chair of the 2021 pledge drive. We are looking forward to a successful stewardship campaign, which we are kicking off today. Throughout the pledge drive, you will hear from fellow congregants who will share how they have put the Unitarian Universalist principles into action this year. They will share with you how their connection with TUC made the experiences possible and why supporting TUC matters and what it means to them. Today, we'll hear from Laura Gardner, who has been very active with the Social Justice Committee this year. Laura was instrumental in the organizing of this year's UU the Vote letter writing campaign for TUC. Here's Laura.
Good morning. My name is Laura Gardner. I've been an active member of Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation for over 25 years. If you ask me why, community is the reason I continue to participate in and financially support the work of our congregation. Community from being with people who share my values. Community from taking action in support of those values. I've been part of many different communities within our congregation over the past many years. When my children were young, I was a member of the religious exploration community. For the past 18 years, I've been a member of my covenant group, which has given me great community. Most recently, I found community with the Social Justice Committee. And last year, I was a member of a letter writing community. Our fifth principle is the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. UU the Vote was initiated last year by the UUA in support of this principle with the goal of encouraging UUs to take action. I took action by writing letters to infrequent voters and voters from underrepresented communities and states throughout the country. I was joined by over 20 members of our congregation and thousands of other UUs and non-UUs throughout the country. The TUC letter writing community never met in person, but we shared our actions via Zoom and email and were connected by a common goal. October 17th was the big send date when we mailed our letters. Across the country, over 16 million letters were mailed by over 145,000 people. When I dropped those letters in the mail slot at the University Place Post Office, I felt community with my fellow UUs and with UUs at our congregation and all over America. Our sixth principle affirms the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It's that goal for our world community that keeps me participating in and financially supporting our congregation. I will be pledging my financial support to TUUC because this community is important to me. I want to be a part of and support the work done by our congregation and in all the different communities, both within and beyond these walls. I hope you will join me in pledging your support. Thank you.
My friends, we're going to take a few minutes to create a word cloud. John, go ahead and pop that webpage up. Put it into the chat, if you would, Bob. How or where have you found community at TUC? Let's see what we can make here, what pieces of our community are important, where you find your connection and support and care. Let us begin. We'll have a bit of a musical interlude and see what develops.
We now come to the part of our service where we give thanks for the support that you give to the church. As you can see on your screen, there's You can go to donate to Tahoma UU to do your donation with these words of thinking. Just as the earth develops seeds to plants and trees by giving them the nutrients and the water that is needed for growth, just as Mother Earth also gives the animals the environment that they need to flourish, we, the congregants of Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation, give our resources of time, energy, and funding to allow this church to grow, to serve the congregation, and to serve the community. As the better the plants are fed and watered, the better they grow. It is the same here. Please take a moment to share your resources with TUUC and its greater community. Now, the words that we use to dedicate our offering. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls.
My friends, let us pause now for a few moments of quiet and reflection, meditation or prayer, whatever is most your custom. Ground yourself where you're sitting, put your feet on the floor, roll your shoulders back. Take a few deep breaths. I offer you these words by Lynn Unger, her poem entitled Joy, as we come to a year of having services online and a year of social distancing and being at home. These words spoke especially to me in these moments. I don't need to tell you, this world is hard and getting harder. We thought it would be better than this, more sensible, more neatly worked out, more righteous, according to our impeccable analysis of what righteousness should look like. And yet, here we are. No good pretending it isn't both a slog and a crisis, which is to say, wearing on every last nerve. And still, when you least expect it, you'll find yourself ambushed by Joy, who, tail whipping and ears slicked back to her head, launches herself into your lap, leaving you breathless and covered in kisses. Let us pause for a few moments of quiet. So may it be.
Our reading this morning is adapted from the Deuteronomy 6 by Reverend Peter Rabel and recast by Reverend Teresa Cooley. We build foundations, pardon me, technology is a wonderful thing. We build foundations we did not lay, foundations hewn from rock and soil with pickaxe and hard muscle, daring to declare, this is our home. We warm ourselves by fires we did not light, sticks gathered from windfall and drought. Flint sparked over and over until the flame is caught, deadly frost and ice held at bay. We sit in the shade of trees that we did not plant, from seedlings to sapling to dome of bough, offering rest and respite, comfort and coolness, and readying us for the next task and the next day. We drink from wells we did not dig, rock upon rock, stone upon stone, holding up walls that protect the precious spring water, brought from the depths of the earth below. We profit from persons we did not know, those who brought vision and courage, building what we now know from imagination and grit, laboring not for glory, but for the future yet to be. This is as it should be. Together we are more than any one person could be. Together we can build across the generations. Together we can renew our hope and faith in life as you unfold. And together we can heed the call to serve the wider community. We are ever bound in circles and cycles of community. May it always be so.
Every year, as some of you probably know, as we come up to our stewardship drive, I always quip about how I'm about to offer the sermon on the amount. In fact, I think I've noted that name for this particular sermon every year since I've been here. And every year I do so unashamedly because it is perhaps my very favorite of stupid minister jokes. You may not have known that stupid minister jokes existed, but now you do. What you might not have noticed, though, if you've been here for these services in years past, is that I never actually talk about anything resembling an amount. Not a percentage, not a dollar amount, none of it. And I don't know that I ever even go as far as the person who sent my colleague, James Ford, a brief email some years ago. The note read in its entirety, "Dear sir, please donate to us. Thank you." And it was followed by a link. James notes, you have to admire the straightforwardness of it. And then he suggested that there were perhaps some more compelling pitches out there to be made. If I'm honest, I'd have to say that what I hope to do every year when I take on this topic isn't really about the money. Instead, it's about that line that we say in our dedication of the offering, weaving a tapestry of love. Carter Hayward offered one of my favorite definitions of love, one that I have relied upon for decades now. She says, love is a choice, not simply or necessarily a rational choice, but rather a willingness to be present to others without pretense or guile. Love is a conversion to humanity, a willingness to participate with others in the healing of a broken world and broken lives. Love isn't a matter only of something warm and cozy. She goes on to note that love is active, effective, a matter of making reciprocal and mutually beneficial relation with one's friends and one's enemies. This is a vision of love that demands a lot from all of us. The strength and the courage to be vulnerable and open to another person. The willingness to experience everyone, even the people who are doing harm to us and to the world, as a part of our circle of love. That's a hard one. That's a deep spiritual practice. And also, it is the necessity of acting, not only feeling. Another level of definition comes from Bell Hooks in her book, All About Love. She defines love this way. It is, quoting here, a combination of trust, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, and respect. Combination of trust, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, and respect. It's a lot to ask from us. A lot to ask from us in these days of chaos and isolation and fear and danger. I'm not sure that I manage it much on most days, but it is in my aspirations of how to be in the world, and I trust that it is in your aspirations too. But here is something that I know for sure about love and what it asks of us, and what saves us from failing every day to meet its demands. When we weave our loves together, it makes us stronger. It offers us hope. It creates possibility and enables healing. What saves us from failing in love day on day is that when we weave our loves together, it makes us stronger, offers us hope, creates possibility, and enables healing. Some of you know that I grew up in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and it really did save my life. My late childhood and adolescence was a time of great struggle in my family. My parents' marriage had fallen apart with loud arguments and occasional physical violence. We were poor. My mother ran a nursery school across the street from our home for a small wage, and my father's work was pretty sketchy through those years. My teen years were trying to find love and connection in all the wrong places. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, as we used to say back in the day. I deeply indulged in all of them. The place that I found stability and care, Unitarian Church of Rockville, Maryland. The adults surrounding me there loved me when I wasn't able to love myself. The youth group advisor, Lenny Julius, made space for me and my friends, and it was always there for me, always there for me. When my wild life sent me to the local free clinic for treatment of a social disease, the doctor who came in to do my exam was Dr. Shea, a friend of my mother's, a member of our congregation and a very familiar face. He was surprised, and I was horrified in the way that only 16-year-olds could be. When he was done with the exam and had given instructions to the nurse for my treatment, he told me to stay where I was after it was done and that he would be back. I waited in fear and trembling, busted, so totally busted. He came back and sat down and looked at me with care and compassion. I want you to take care of yourself, he said, because we love you and you matter. I don't remember much more of what he said that day, but that has been a touchstone for me in the many decades since. When I was finishing up seminary, I went back to UCR and preached about how I believed as a congregation they had saved my life. Then and now, I utterly believe it. I suspect I would have died an early death, honestly, had it not been for the stability and care of that community. It was, you'll remember, back in, this would be somewhere close to 50 years ago. That time, you may remember, was when the AIDS crisis was starting. My friend Eric, who ran away from home at 13 because his parents couldn't accept him after he came out as gay, spent a lot of time in DC. I spent a lot of time with him. He made his way in the world by selling his sweet body on the streets. And while AIDS didn't kill him at a young age, he lived most of his life infected and died an early death. It was never far from my consciousness that that could have been me. When I finished the sermon, the thing that stunned me the most was the line of my elders who formed and one after another said to me in one way or another, me too. My story, though the details differed, was theirs too. Unitarian Church of Rockville, Maryland had saved their lives too, and I never knew it. I wonder how many of you have had that same experience. Weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we say every week, perhaps not fully paying attention to what we are saying. It's pretty language, a lovely image of making a fabric of care and connection. I forget all the time that what the threads that are woven in are things like trust, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, and respect, as bell hooks suggests. I forget all the time that it's choosing to be present without guile or pretense to another, that it's about what moves us to engage in the healing of ourselves and our world. We might say that when we weave our loves together, it makes us stronger, it offers us hope, it creates possibility, and it enables healing. That's what the creation of our Tapestry of Love is all about. My sermon on the amount is never really about the amount. It's about the vision of our congregation, what it might be able to do, how we might be weaving love into the world, both individually and collectively. It's about how we bring our whole selves, our lives, and our resources to make something that has the capacity to save us and to save the world. Imagine what we can do together, my friends. And so I leave you with the questions. How will you join in this weaving? What will you bring? How will you be a part? May it be for all of us that we join our disparate threads together and weave a fabric of beauty and care and love every day. So may it be. Amen. I invite you now to pause for just a moment. If there's been something in the service today that has touched you, I invite you to take this time to set an intention for how you may take it out into the world. Let us pause in stillness. Colleague Bob Carnan of blessed memory reminds us what our work in the world is. He says it is to heal and to inspire, to open and to remake, and thus change what is sorry into a joy. It is why we gather in the spirit of love and justice. It is why I give my service, my life in service, to what can only be described as invisible and intangible, but which is also the most powerful force of all. Our all too human, sometimes faltering, sometimes complete, sometimes painful and sad, sometimes serene and laughing love that speaks, if anything at all does, with the voice of God. Let us join in the weaving of love, my friends, this day and every day, that the world we dream becomes a world created. Let us all go in peace and in love. Amen and blessed be.
We now come to the end of our service, and as Nancy Slocum extinguishes our chalice, please join me in the words in the chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We'll now have our closing song by Asher.
You, I receive, to you I give, together we share, and of this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and of this we live.